Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture, the show where we discuss science, technology, and culture, either individually or where they happen to intersect. My name's Ben Warner, and I'm joined by my fellow co-host Steve Kern today on this Australia Day weekend for our first show of 2015. Welcome back, Steve. Hope everything's good.
Yeah, everything's good. In fact, everything's great. Hi, Ben. Hello, everyone out there watching us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to kick off the year with a discussion about the future of work, which we'll get to in a moment, because that's actually, I think, something that's becoming more and more relevant as we progress further in this century. And we're starting to see, I guess, some of the initial shifts in changes in how things are working. But before we get into that, before we got on today, we were just having a quick chat about some of the sporting events that are occurring, at least in Australia. I'm sure they're being followed around the world as well, particularly in Asian countries. The Asian Cup soccer is on at the moment, and been following that with interest. And it's fascinating just the way they've gone about it and all that sort of thing. We can talk about obviously the Tim Cahill factor in the Australian team and his sort of magic sauce that he poured on top of that game against China the other day, which was fascinating. But just, how we were talking last year about scheduling and things like that for TV in general. The game was played at around 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 9:30, which magically put it at about 6:30 in China. And I'm just wondering if that's because, from a broadcast perspective, the bigger audience was there.
Almost certainly. They've been doing that for years, in whatever sport you care to think of. So it's good, I guess. It's, if you're a professional sportsman, you should be able to play any time of day or night, even though I think these days the tennis stars don't think so. But, I think, it's good.
Yeah.
Good. Play 'em whenever you can get the biggest audience. Because let's face it, everyone wants to watch this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good thing, I guess, for Australian soccer is that it seems to be getting a fair amount of light. At least they're sort of making an effort to sort of promote the sport a little bit, even though I was shocked to discover that the tickets to games in Australia actually weren't that expensive. But maybe that might be because, they want to get people in.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if you're saying that they're getting a good run in the media, dare I say it, Australia's winning.
Yeah, exactly. Also, just wanted to chat quickly. We just mentioned tennis. Then, they need to do some better, get some better systems in place for buying tickets online. Because we're trying to actually get tickets to a game for last night at the Australian Open, and it said tickets are available, and then you press the submit button, and then it came up saying the tickets aren't available, or something to that effect. You'd hope that they'd figure out a way to make this work better, because at the end of the day, we're all gravitating towards this type of online purchasing model. The idea of going to a ticket window is almost becoming antiquated by comparison. And I'm pretty sure the ticket sellers don't actually want you to go to the box anymore. So if they could improve that, it would be a lot better.
Well, I think, once again, you've got, legacy systems, people that have sold those legacy systems, and they're geared around browsers, people clicking online at 9 a.m. in the morning when tickets go on sale. And as you say, today we can buy anything at a moment's notice from wherever we are with our smart devices. And I just actually don't think the systems are working in that way. They're still very much browser-based.
Yeah, exactly.
And not instant. They're expecting you to buy a ticket for a day or two later, not the moment, not when you just happen to be passing by Rod Laver Arena.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and just one final thing that I wanted to mention just before we get into our main topic today, the topic of the different size tablets and what they're used for. So where I'm coming from that is I've now spent a bit of time with obviously a full-sized iPad and an iPad mini, and this actually this is in the context of any tablet maker's tablet. It just so happens I happen to have the iPads, but It's funny how the 7 to 8 inch form factor is so perfect for content consumption, but it's absolutely not good at all for productivity. And as evidenced by the fact that the show notes today, I've gone back to using the full-sized iPad because it's just better to look at, better to scroll through, and just better overall to, sort of, if I want to make adjustments, all that sort of thing. And even like things to do like with image editing and things like that, the larger screen is better for that. So it seems like there's still a use case for both sizes at this point, unless of course, there are larger tablets on the horizon.
Yeah, or maybe you get some of those new virtual glasses. You only need a tablet this big, but it'll appear as big as a screen in front of your eyes. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens in the future. The next 10 years in mobile computing should be quite interesting.
And just to add to that, interestingly, Google's pulled Glass.
Yeah, is it really that surprising though? I mean,
no, it's not. But the world wasn't ready for it yet. But it is interesting
because the practicality of Google Glass is probably what not killed it, but was a hampering factor, I think, from the beginning. Apart from the fact that it seemed intrusive, to others. I mean, there's also just an issue of practicality. Like, how big a battery could you fit in one of those things for it to last a decent amount of time?
I think there were severe limitations with the product. It is way ahead of its time, and but also I think it was the emergence of the glass hole, which was aimed at the individuals who rushed out, got them, and started intruding in people's lives.
Yeah,
I think that probably also put a stop to it. But interesting, just as a footnote.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to our main topic today, technology and the future of work. Now, the impetus for this is ABC writer Alan Kohler is a businessman from a business perspective, and he wrote a rather interesting article, I thought, on the ABC site recently, where he postulated the thought, in 200 years, people of the future will read in wonder about how humans sat at a production line doing the same thing over and over again. And then expands out to the thought that where the Industrial Revolution obviously changed so many things in terms of how we live and work, the introduction of the 8-hour workday, etc., could we be going through another process right now where something, maybe not the same sort of thing, but the end of repetitive work, the start of all of us working in a way that is a bit more high level, and say machinery and technology take over the menial tasks, which I think so much of it has. Are we going through a period like that, do you think?
Oh, yeah, almost certainly. I think what we're seeing now is the true tech revolution.
Yeah.
I think we've seen it at our desks in the last 30 or 40 years, but the difference now is mobility. There's no reason you can't go really and work on a document in a cafe. And I think if we look back 30 or 40 years ago, people were saying, all we did was swap pen and paper for a computer at a desk. Then the next step seemed to be laptop computers, and remote connections. The fact that you could log in at home and everyone was like, you work from home. But there are drawbacks to that.
Yeah.
And that, once again, is a fixed location. And what we're seeing more and more is that, not only are we connected in whatever we're doing, wherever we're doing it via social media,
the
other thing is we're increasingly as mobile. So we need to meet for work. We need to talk. We need to share ideas. And but we can work at a cafe as easily as we can work at our desk, as easily as we can work upstairs or downstairs in the building or down the street. And I think that's starting to unlock, a lot of, the idea that you need an office. The second part of that, of course, is that the automation that means that there are a lot of things that you can do now that mean you don't have to be in a fixed place and something else can do it all. And with the Internet of Things, you'll be able to relay something from your mobile device and get the automation to take care of it.
Yeah, which is it's fascinating, isn't it? Just to give it maybe a bit of personal context, the the government department that I work in doesn't have a lot of the lower level roles anymore, and I think that's actually typical of the rest of the public service, in that those lower level jobs are becoming more and more, sort of scarce, for lack of a better word, and the type of work is sort of becoming a lot higher level.
Well, that's it. I mean, if you need to fill out a form now, you can, any organisation, whether it's government or private business, such as insurance, will get you to fill out an autofill form.
Yeah, that's right. And whereas in the past there would have been typing pools and paper, application sorters and whatnot. At certain levels there still is that sort of thing, but for the most part it's not really there. It's more like a quality assurance type thing rather than an actual processing type thing.
There still needs to be people to interact with people. I think that's clear. And what I'm very interested now is, as part of this discussion, is where's AI going?
Yeah.
And I actually don't think artificial intelligence will evolve now as we expect it to, because when people postulated AI, they were really thinking in terms of the fact that you've got a device that needs to think for itself. They never envisaged that we'd be able to be directly connected to that device.
Well, that's isn't that part of the discussion with AI too? And we always bring up the Skynet type cliches around that, but the Future of Life Institute report that Alan Kohler refers to talks about this issue being an actual real issue. That if you've got an AI system that can come up with its own set of actions based on data that's been inputted into it, and then can sort of take actions based on that information, why wouldn't it necessarily? It could, in theory, sort of interpret, say, you switching off the power to its system as being an action that it doesn't, that's not in line with its programming, and will actively attempt to stop you from doing it.
Yeah, look, there's all sorts of nice analogies to this. I mean, I'm sure a government department would do the same if you try to turn it off as well. So, I think these are real issues. I do believe these are real issues, but are they not issues that already exist? So,
I guess what they're warning about is that we're creating this thing, so we just have to be mindful of what it is that we're creating.
Oh, look, I don't think there's any question about that. And I think that the value in talking about this is that it needs to be discussed, because otherwise people don't really understand what they're faced with.
Yeah.
But, if you can imagine, if you designed a bot, whether it's virtual or real, to deal with people, as long as it can understand your needs accurately, then you basically, it shouldn't matter whether it's human or not. If it doesn't understand your needs, then you end up with scenes like, Total Recall, where Arnie has to take it out in the taxi driver.
Exactly. But, leaving aside the, say, the negative stereotypes associated with AI, assuming that, it's developed in a way that is useful and beneficial, and relating it back to future of work and employment, you can see that that's where, say, a lot of those repetitive tasks may go to, and then that would almost suggest by definition that, or by extension, that it would encourage people to develop higher levels of work and work capability.
Absolutely. So if you approach it from a manufacturing point of view, all your typical manufacturing jobs over time will disappear. Those jobs will be replaced by robotic engineers and technicians, because the robots still need maintenance and looking after.
Yeah.
But it'll be a higher level of work, and there'll be less of those people. If you look at more of the mundane day-to-day tasks, we've already seen typing pools go, and we've seen a lot of the basic clerical jobs go, probably everywhere except the legal system, which is still in the 18th century for the most part. So, and probably universities as well. There's still a lot of clerical stuff there that doesn't really need to be done.
Yeah.
If you take that to the next level, you probably do take away all your clerical and basic tasks. Even now in retail, we're seeing the end of the checkout operator. So, you know, those types of jobs which can be automated effectively will.
Yeah.
So the question is where does it stop? And I think it stops at the level where humans need to communicate, because the AI, I don't believe, will ever reach a point where it can actively think for itself. And I don't think that's because we'll never be able to do it technologically. I think it's because we won't need to have it do that. We'll actually always be in control. And we'll probably be very foolish if we ever give that up.
Yep. Cue Skynet, yes.
Yes. Well, there's no need for humans to give artificial intelligence to machines outside of that obeying our instructions.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really look, probably the best example currently is Curiosity on Mars. It has to do a certain amount of stuff, you know, basically has to obey the instructions from Earth and then operate using its own intelligence within the parameters of those instructions. And I think that that's where we're headed, rather than just making autonomous AI bots, because we can communicate at every stage. We can have an app to control an artificially intelligent device at every stage. So there's no reason anymore for them to have autonomy over their actions.
Should be interesting to see whether if this type of work starts to disappear, whether it will be a motivator for people either to go for those higher skilled type of jobs or to create their own work. So that you'd think that the amount of technology that's swept through in the last, especially in the last decade or so, that it would encourage a lot more people to be able to develop their own business ideas and get out there and do things. Because I guess, you know, that's always been available, but technology now has added another sort of layer of opportunity on that as well.
Look, and I think one of the best examples of that is probably a lot of the craft brewing that you see these days, where, you know, every new beer seems to be craft brew. Well, the truth is that most of them actually brewed under contract at the big breweries, but that's not, you know, any negativity towards the quality of those beers. It's what you put in, and the fact is there are people there now who can sit down, use technology to determine what this beer will taste like before we've even made it. Play around with the recipe. That's what technology does in a virtual world, and then allows us to brew commercial quantities of this beer. And it, to be quite honest, tastes better than the commercial beers that we've been drinking for years, because those commercial beers that we've been drinking for years are using 1950s technology.
Yeah.
So I think
does that allow feeding off each other then? Will that spur then the traditional makers to do something more interesting?
Well, they already have by assimilating a lot of the craft beers into their brands. But
you got to love the corporation, don't you?
It does, but what it means is that probably another 20 or 30 years, the awful beers won't exist anymore, and you just have a much better selection of better beers. And it's not because breweries today don't want you to have those better beers. It's because they're dealing with legacy frameworks. Yep. And I think you can see this again with agriculture as well. So at the high end where we have to mass produce food, you will have more robotics, but there's a niche demand for organic, natural, locally produced produce, and these will be done by more artisanal agriculturalists.
Yep.
So, you know, and I think that you could probably even see that to some aspects of manufacturing, where you will find that, you know, we even see it now, some clothing is locally produced, you know, but it's a specialty. So I think that those sorts of things will happen, and you'll have probably not a loss of all those skills, but they'll reposition themselves in the market. And but automation will take over the rest, because there's so many people in the world now. You know, you just can't service people without, you know, automation. But having said that, there's some things you can't automate, and that's why the pizza vending machine has never worked.
Exactly. And just finally, before we wrap up, do you think there'll probably be some pain and adjustment to go through for people as we make this transition. And I guess one of the challenges will be finding meaningful, productive tasks and work for for as many people as possible, given the size of the population that we have now.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you accept that retail is probably the next gig in the firing line, then yeah. But these sorts of ideas have already been mooted under limits for growth. And the fact that, maybe what it means is we need a complete rethink of how we do things, even down to job sharing. And as painful as it will be in short term, society always adjusts, and let's hope it does it quickly.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll just mean that we all have a bit more time to enjoy things.
Sounds good. Or as I think Alan Kohler referred to, we might just have our afternoons off in the future.
That's right. Well, I mean, exactly. And within, I guess the financial spheres, automation there has taken over, over the years as well. I'm surprised there are any bank tellers left, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. It's a good way to kick off 2015 and look forward to some more episodes this year. Very
good. Yes, we will. And I guess we've got plenty more in store as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget to check out our website, scitechculture.com. Has all of our links to all our content. We're actually managed to get some blogs and some other bits and pieces up over our break, so we weren't entirely inactive during the last month or so. We're planning to keep adding some more there. You can interact with us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+. Check out our photos on Instagram and Flickr. And if you think anyone's interested in our discussions, refer them to our website. We'd greatly appreciate that. And just spread the word and get SciTech culture out there, because after all, they're very interesting topics that we're living in, and it's I guess a century that these things apply to, because it affects everything that we do.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.